Welcome to the Sales Influence Podcast, where we talk about finding the why in how people buy. I'm your host, Victor Antonio. Super excited to be with you guys here today. Again, thank you for joining me. I appreciate your time. By the way, I do appreciate your feedback. I got a lot of that stuff online. And again, if you have not left me a review on iTunes, Stitcher, please do so if you really dig this podcast. All right. I am on a loyalty trip right now. Yes, a loyalty trip. And that is, I want to understand, what drives customer loyalty. Now, if I were to ask you this question, what drives customer loyalty? Think of an answer right now. Think of an answer. What drives customer loyalty? How would you define customer loyalty? And I can guarantee you that if I were to ask 10 people that same question, how would you define customer loyalty or what does that mean? I'll get 10 different answers. So I've been on this search for trying to understand how can I quantify. This is my engineering brain, right? For those of you who know, I have an engineering degree. And my engineering brain says, I don't like the esoteric, fluffy, ethereal stuff. I need you to quantify this for me. And quantify by me, give me some empirical data. And so when people say, what is loyalty? I said, give me some data, something that I can just bite into. Well, anyway, I finally found what I consider a great answer to defining loyalty in a very empirical way. Now, I was reading a book. It's a great book. I'm going to highly recommend this. I'm not going to highly recommend it. I'm a 2X highly recommend this book. It's called The Effortless Experience. The Effortless Experience. Written by Dixon, Toman, and DeLisi. I think I got those names right. And I follow a guy by the name of Matt Dixon. I love his work. He used to be with an organization called the CEB, which I think stands for the Council Executive Board, which was bought out by Gartner. So Matt Dixon, look him up, follow him. I follow him. I love his content. But anyway, this book, The Effortless Experience, I literally have read it twice, and I think I might go for a third read. That's how good this book is. Who should read this book? If you're concerned about customer loyalty, stickiness, getting customers to stick with you, increase retention, then I'm going to suggest you read this book, especially if you're a small, medium-sized business, and if you're definitely an enterprise company, you should read this book. If you're an entrepreneur, read it for your own edification, but really, unless you're a small, medium-sized business, this book will not help you as much. But again, the data and the insight in this book is just incredible. But the one that I want to highlight during this podcast is loyalty. Because loyalty matters. Remember, we're always trying to reduce, or I say decrease, our churn. In other words, we're trying to retain more customers. Now, there was an old saying back in the day that it's 6 times cheaper to keep a customer than to go out and get one. Let me say it again. 6 times cheaper to keep a customer than it is to go out and get one. Well, depending on which study you believe, that number has risen to 10 to almost 25% cheaper to keep a customer than it is to go out and get one. In other words, it's becoming that much harder to get new clients. So our ability to retain, increase the loyalty factor matters. Now, in this book, The Effortless Experience, it was written in 2013, but don't let the date fool you, the year. This book is valuable, and I think today it matters even that much more. And in the book, they're talking about something called effort, right? That customers today want to experience a frictionless buying experience. In other words, the more frictionless you can make the buying experience, the easier you can make it for a customer to buy from you, the more likely they are to stick with you. And when they looked at loyalty, they gave 3 parameters that they look at. And this caught my attention because how would you measure loyalty? Well, here are 3, I'll say, dimensions that you can use to measure customer loyalty. The first one is repurchase intent. In other words, are they likely to buy again? That's an obvious one. Repurchase intent. In other words, when a customer buys a second or third time, great. That's the first signal that you have a loyal customer. But not only repurchase intent, that's the first dimension. The second dimension is increased spend. That's the phrase, increase spend. So what is their repurchase intent? If a customer buys from you or intends to repurchase, that's one aspect of loyalty. And you can measure that by how many times. If you look at the frequency, the amount of times they've bought from you, you can actually measure repurchase intent. But then increased spend means they're not only buying from you again, they're buying more from you again. And again, it would be interesting to go back and look at your data to see, are they buying? What's the frequency? How often are they buying? What's the recency? How often do they buy? And then look at, are they buying more? In other words, are you able to upsell them or cross-sell them on different products that you may have? Now, the third one, and this one ties into something called the Net Promoter Score, and that is word of mouth. In other words, how likely are they to recommend your company or your product? That's the Network Promoter Score question, right? How likely are you to recommend our product or our company? Now, the intersection of these three things, repurchase intent, increase the spend, and word of mouth, the Net Promoter Score, those three things give you an indication of how loyal your customers are. So how would you apply this if you're in a small, medium-sized business or, again, enterprise company? Again, let's go back and look at the data, right? How often are they buying? What's the frequency and how recent? Recency and frequency, right? So that's repurchase intent. Are they buying again? And if they're not buying again, that's an indicator. They're not buying again. Why? Especially if we have a portfolio of products that they should be buying from. In other words, easy upsells or cross-sells. So look at the data and see, are they buying again? That's the thing. First thing you look at is repurchase intent. If they're not buying again, we have a problem, Houston. Then look at increased spend. Then look at those people who are coming back and buying from you and see if they're buying the same amount. If they're buying the same amount, that's not bad. But if they're buying less, that's not a good indicator. But if they're buying more, that's a positive indication that they love your product and they love part of your portfolio and they want to buy more products and they're buying more from you. So again, repurchase intent, are they coming back? Are they buying? If yes, great. If not, If they're coming back to buy, how much are they buying? Are they buying the same amount? Are they buying less? If they're buying more, this is another indication that you have a loyal customer. And then the third piece, word of mouth, the Net Promoter Score question is, how likely are you to recommend our products or service to a friend or a colleague? Maybe you need to do a little survey there. Now imagine if you send out a survey to these specific customers. In other words, you pick out a customer block, and then you're looking at, again, repurchase intent, you're looking at increased spend, but now you send out a survey. How likely are you to recommend our product? And you can do a scoring, and based on the scoring, that will give you an indication of how loyal that customer is. So again, taking these three things together, repurchase intent, increased spend, and also word of mouth, being able to put those three, find the intersection of those three, you may start getting an idea of how loyal your customers are. And again, what I love about this approach is that it's got data behind it. You can do data to get the actual repurchase intent, look at sales, increase spend, look at sales, and word of mouth, let's do a survey. Put all these three things together, and remember, the goal here is to keep customers who are buying, but not only keep them, but keep them buying more and demonstrating their loyalty. And that is it for this Sales Influence podcast. Don't forget to leave me some feedback on iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube. Let me know what you think. As always, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, check out my online sales training platform. You know the deal, the Sales Velocity Academy. Over 40 courses, 400 plus videos, my books. And if you're serious about increasing your sales velocity, go to salesvelocityacademy.com. salesvelocityacademy.com. Lastly, I want to thank you for listening. This is Victor Antonio, always reminding you, selling ain't hard when you know how. Take care. Hi, I'm Victor Antonio. I'm an author, sales trainer, and keynote speaker. I'm often asked, what makes a great speaker? Is it someone who delivers real content that the audience can use? Is it someone who engages the audience so they're part of the learning experience? Or is it someone who can motivate an audience to push them beyond their comfort zone and discover new abilities? The answer is yes. But the most important thing to remember is that I'm not there to look good. I'm there to make my client look good. Simply put, it's never about me, and it's always about them.